There's a cultural humility that's also systemic in how you are taught to be grateful for what you have. And it almost seems like a little kept secret that, it takes using what you have to get a little more, especially coming from immigrants. But it also feels like a moment, like the time is right. Almost like from now in the world with what I'm doing, like, what am I going to do? What am I doing? What am I doing it for? All those things are in your hands to craft. And that's the part. It's like, but I'm an artist. It's not enough.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Judy Reyes is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work.
I think that's the thing about being an actor. You never really quite feel like you belong, and that's the Hollywood part of it. You feel like you're always trying to work your way in there and make your way in there and be what's important, question mark, what you think is important, what they think is important, what's important to your career or to your work. And that's all kinds of bumps. I was with Eva Longoria yesterday at her birthday tea, a bunch of Latina women getting together. And you're going to hear all the Latina thing over and over again if you need further explanation. But she's all about, establishing her community of women and supporting each other. But she's on an episode of Only Murderers in the Building. I guess, again, to your point, she was in this space with these brilliant actors. It's like Meryl Streep and Steve Martin and Martin Short. And she's like taking a moment. She's like, I belong here. I'm supposed to be here with these incredible people that I've always been a fan of from the moment I started this whole endeavor. And I belong here. But you're always, I guess the point is, there's always intimidation.
Yeah.
Either by your environment, the work, your peers. Going to HB Studio and in class, I was like, what the fuck are these people talking about? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to try it, and they're like, go into your memory and go into this. I was like, what? It took me so long to connect with that because, and I felt so outside because I didn't understand what was going on, or I just didn't connect with it.
When you were there, was that your first experience of getting any kind of training?
I was in Glee Club in high school. I didn't really. I mean, I came from a very theatrical, dramatic family, I should say. My mom was a great singer. She sang in the church choir. I would sing with her. And it's four girls, all of who were very artistic, very creative, very performative. All of us were always putting on some kind of show. We loved the telenovelas and all of that stuff. So I would say the training was in-house. And when I went to college, Hunter College, I was always secretly looking for acting classes. Because I think where I come from, you're lucky to go to college. You're not going to be no actor, right? And it made sense, but you do it on the side. I remember where I have a twin sister. We're fraternal twins, and my twin sister, when she was little, was absolutely mad about being an actor, and she'd look for the ads, like looking for actors. Young kids can be all ethnicities and stuff. And she read that, and she harassed my mother to take her. And to make a long story, I went along. I was like, I'll come. I wasn't gonna get in the way of that. And I was sitting in the background, and this con man, pretty much, saying the same exact speech to every mom. Your kid could be in commercials. I could see him in if you give me something, a couple of $100, then I'll make sure that, and when my mother got there, she heard that, she lost her shit. She was so furious. So you waste my time on a Saturday after working all this week, and you make me come this, and this is bull. And she terrified the living shit out of my sister and me, and we never ever said a thing about it again. And then once I got it, and I was always like the good one, the quiet, the obedient. But when the second I got into college, I was like, I think I want to do that. I think I want to do that. My sister moved on from it. I got engaged, was getting married. Was the two things that my mom encouraged us to do was be a social worker or a teacher. a good government job, because those are the people that she remembers helping her when she came to this country. Good educated women of color. Like, that's the best thing, My mom had no education, 8 years old, out of school, So we were able to perform through church, the safe environment. And my mom's very, very Catholic. And she had a dear friend named Carmela. There was the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater. It had an English language classes and Spanish language classes. And we were good friends with her two daughters, also Dominican. But she was a passionate dream to be an actor. So she would take her acting classes. And she made a huge, at the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, just like it was like a birth for her. And she put on this huge talent show at St. Margaret Mary's Church, which included my mom performing with Freddie on the guitar, shows, dances and stuff. And we put together, like, me and my sister did a scene with the House of Bernarda Alba, in Spanish, of course. I sang Papa Don't Preach. And we all did a dance. And it was like one of those all-day affairs where there's like a buffet break, like 2-hour break, you're hanging out, the kids are in the yard. It's like a real big church thing. I remember it like yesterday, because I had just gotten into college, 18. I was like, this is what I want to do. I was so happy. I had so much fun. I was awesome for whatever awesome was there, because everybody just fucking loved me.
Yeah.
And I was just living my best life. And then the day was over and I was just giddy. And I go home, my mom's watching Siempre en Domingo, a variety show for Sundays for Latinos and stuff, watching singers on there. And I go to her, and say, Mommy, because I was undeclared major in college. And she's like, well, you better declare it, because then you're going to get out and blah, blah, blah. And I go, Mommy, I know what I want to do. I said, Mommy, I have to talk to you. I have to do it. ¿Qué fue, mija? I know what I want to do. She goes, what? I was like, I'm going to be an actor. And she said, she fucking laughed at my face. She said I was crazy. She said, tú estás loca. No. Girls like you, women like us, you're going to be a social worker or you're going to be a teacher. You're not going to waste your time in college and your money being an actor. That's not for you. And I was like shocked. I was hurt. I was enraged. I was confused, and I was determined. I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And I slammed the door, which I never did before. And I went to and that was it. The next day, I signed up for an acting class in college. I went to HB Studio. I started taking classes. I went to the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater. I took every class I could find.
But where did you have that audacity or to defy your mother?
What a good question. I mean, I never defied her. And I'm one of 4 girls. Okay. So there was a lot of defying in my house, but I was afraid, where my older sister was wild and she snuck out. My twin sister was like her and, she would do her, but I was afraid to get yelled at. I was afraid to get hit. I was afraid of all of that shit. So, but I knew, but the reminder, the constant in my house, I love this question. I never thought of it again for a long time. In my house was that when you're 17, you go to college, you're 18, you can do whatever you want. You're 18, you can do whatever you want. And that was my throwback to my mother. I was like, well, I'm 18, right? I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. That's what you said, and there was nothing that I'd done historically to have them keep that from me, because I didn't even have a boyfriend until I was 18, So I was, and it was clear. It was literally like an epiphany for me. And it made me happy. The thought of it made me happy. And it was, just trudging along on the subway, carrying your shit all day, going to class, coming up with money, taking a part-time job and all that stuff, just to go to these classes, just to do these things. And it never felt like a burden. I had one moment, right, where it felt like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? But I always loved everything about it, even the journey in the class. And I was like, what is happening? I'd save money to go to shows. I'm like, I don't like this. This I like. Yeah. Just the discovery and the freedom. Like for me, it was like going away to college. Yeah. I just felt completely inspired by the whole thing.
It takes so much support just to survive this endeavor, right? When you don't have that initially from your mother, And everybody that's getting, at this time, everybody that's getting roles around you doesn't look like you. And you're saying you enjoyed it, but there must have been times when the rejection is coming and you can't turn to people for support.
You know, being an actor or being a performer of any kind was my mother's dream also. You know, so she was more worried than anything that wasting my time, you know, and for the right reasons, you know, but I just didn't see it that way. And I did a lot of theater, and I invited her, and she and my dad would come to everything I did. They came all the time. They always supported. You know, I always invited them, so I wasn't keeping it from them. I was just like, they knew I was serious, you know. Whether or not they thought I was nuts was another matter. They came. Did I need for her to understand me? Yeah, because I moved out of my house, and then I ended up coming back to my house because I ran out of money and I couldn't get a job. I had like 3.5 years where nothing happened. I was like, what am I doing? What is happening with my life? And I moved back home and felt terrible about myself. You know, in the meantime, in terms of support, you can't really, that's a lot of pressure on parents, looking back, of course, to expect them to be the kind of support that you need to get you through something. And that's when I found the LAByrinth Theater Company, which was the Latino actor space back then.
Yes.
The brainchild of like John Ortiz and Gary Perez and Stephen Adley Girgis. And that's where it made sense. That's where those classes and those at HB Studio made sense. It was a community. It was people like me with the same exact dream and the belief and the knowing that and most of them were college grads. I wasn't, you know, and it's like John Ortiz. I fucking studied 4 years of Shakespeare and I'm still playing drug addicts. You know what I mean? And it was a place to play mostly. You know, to put all those things, all those skills that you work so hard to hone, to work with each other on your own and to build something.
Was there a moment when you went from this being something that was a dream, something that you enjoyed, to realizing that you actually have a craft, you actually have a great ability here, and realizing that is something that now has to be kind of fostered?
I became part of the LAByrinth Theater Company. I got a job at a restaurant because that's what you do when you realize you're going to be an actor. And I was a hostess at this restaurant called Trattoria del Arte across the street from Carnegie Hall for 4 years. Okay. And I worked there and we had regular customers that knew me. But in the meantime, I was doing little workshops and readings and stage things, no representation, no nothing, classes. And I was hanging out with my theater company and that filled my soul. I just didn't know what was next. So I'd go to like a backstage, auditions and backstage, all that stuff. And I'd book workshops and I'd be acting and stuff and happy. And we had a regular couple that would come in, right? The husband would always they'd sit at a table for four in the front. And the husband would always come first. And then the wife would show up like half an hour later or like an hour later sometimes with bags, you know, elderly woman. And one day he was there again, drinking his wine and, you know, waiting for his wife. And we start chatting. I'm always very nice, but I never start talking to him. I goes, how old are you? He starts, you know, getting my background and where are you from and all that stuff. And what do you want to do? And then I got very self-conscious. Nobody's ever asked me anything like that in that place where I work. And I was like, when I felt comfortable, I was like, well, I mean, started rolling my eyes. I mean, you know, everybody who works in the restaurant wants to be an actress, right? So yeah, I'm an actress. He goes, really? Do you have an agent? And I'm like, no, you know, I'm looking, I'm doing workshops and stuff like that. He goes, you know, my wife is a manager. And I said, what? No. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. He goes, I'm going to talk to her about you. And I was like, oh, cool, thank you. And then my boss, the maitre d', said, that's huge. His wife is a big manager. She manages she manages teens. There is Jean Fox was her name. Fox Albert Management. Represented Mira Sorvino, was one of her biggest clients at the time. And I was like, okay, I had no fucking clue. No idea. And she comes in late. They're sitting there having dinner. At the end of their dinner, she seems exhausted. She goes like, Here's my card. Come to my office and have a meeting with me and Denise, her associate. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I go there the next day or a couple of days later, I don't remember. And Denise, who apparently deals with shit like this all the time, like somebody meets and she will, whoever she likes, she puts on Denise. She was like over it, like exhausted. I'm like, okay, I'll take you on for a three-month verbal contract. Okay. I was like, great, that's awesome. All right. I was like, and then after that, if you work, you're not work, then we'll have to, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I was like, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. She sends me out an audition for a play in Philly. I can't remember. It was like a 2 one-act plays in Philly in a big theater for 3 months, paid and everything. No SAG card, no equity, no nothing. And okay. And then I go out to this audition for this movie called Jack and His Friends. Independent film, back when you could get cast in something as a complete unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I booked them both.
Wow.
And Sam Rockwell was in the film with me. And I was like, well, we have to choose one. I was like, the movie, duh. Of course, I didn't know. It was like the lead in a movie. So, I think vanity and ego and all those star dreams go with that, with those choices. And then Denise calls me and says, we're going to have to sign you. And I think that's how that began. Yeah.
And what do you chalk that up to?
Dumb luck. Yes, it does. And I like to tell that because so there's so many people who have different experiences.
Yeah.
And are just as passionate and just as talented. And just as faithful about that. I just straight up right place, right time kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't say, well, because I studied and I went to college and, all that shit. I can't, because that's not how it happened.
Yeah. But let's be real though. It's, the luck happened with that guy, but you booked the job. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't have, if it was just, he did that because for whatever reason, you didn't book the job, then maybe that happens a lot. We don't know about those. My point is, it would have happened somehow.
I would agree with that. I just think that at the time, it just felt so out of my hands, and it happened anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? The only thing that I knew was how to do it with my peers, right? How to be as good as I can with it, and like kind of like enjoy figuring it out and doing it, and seriously, I can't overstate how important this community of actors was to me in terms of my growth as an actor and my passion and my love for it, and the support that helps you at least hone your vision or your idea of what you want to be, touch on it so that somehow you can manifest it, if you will.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new character?
I do, and something that I learned, I journal as the character. I spend time kind of deciding where they come from, who they are, because sometimes, especially when it's not there's not much there. You kind of got to build like a personality for yourself so that you know how to make it its own thing. And I've gotten so much better at that as I got older, than I was when I was younger. How important it is to tell the story of that person within those tiny spaces.
And what does that do for you when you actually fill in those blanks on the day when that little scene has to be done? You know what I mean?
Right. I think it creates a courage for me to make some choices, and decide why I'm making those choices, and then defend my choices or try other choices, knowing the who, what, why, where, when of this person, and it's really not as deep as it sounds. You literally write things out and you make shit up about that person.
Yeah.
But I think you attach yourself to an existence, and you attach yourself and you bring that in, and it shows. And so you remember what you wrote. I'm thinking of this character that I'm going to be doing. How would the character that I play in Celia in Birth, Rebirth, that was a more extensive history that I put. That how would they react? Will they do this? Let me try. That safety that your director feels with you when they talk to somebody who knows where they're coming from with
Yeah.
whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Again, things that I learned down the line, maybe because I didn't I didn't have a course in college of acting
Right,
or anything
right,
like that,
right.
but things that I figured out.
And do you feel like you need to get answers for those questions from the writer or the director, or do you just confidently do it on your own and just trust your own self about who this person is in their past?
Me, I have a tendency to try it first and confidently go on my own before I ask the questions. But if I have a genuine question, I'll just again, when I'm older, I'm less shy about it. I think I'm more aggressive about asking questions and not judging whether that question is stupid. Should I know that character better? Because it's all about, me and how I treat myself, how I talk to myself before I ask the questions. But I like to try it first,
Yeah.
and then go there.
You said something amazing that I don't think anyone has ever said, which is attach myself to an existence.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you're building this thing and then attaching yourself to it. A lot of people say, oh, I embody the character, but this is different. I'm getting into semantics now about the way you just said it, but I think it's
Well,
opening
that's
up
funny
something.
because I embody the character. That feels so esoteric to me and unattainable. Like
Yeah.
there's some magic to it, I never connected to talking like that until I started writing as that person.
Yeah.
That's the 1+1 = 2 of it. But
Yes.
attached and the ethereal is like, how do you do that though? I was like, I get it. I'm attached, but how do I do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like some secret, to it that but it's like whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what have you discovered? Like, we have to really relish an opportunity to talk to somebody like you who has had a lot of experience in various types of work, spending a long time on television shows, spending time just coming in every once in a while to some shows, doing independent work, doing theater. You know what I mean? When you look back on your changes that have happened to you over these years based on experiences, can you sum up a situation where everything is working in the way that you want it to work and it's bringing out the best in you? Describe that kind of set and that kind of environment.
I think it's a series of after Scrubs. I was very ready for that to be over. It was time to move on, right? And I know how Carla changed my career, but I think coming from the theater, it's like I got to see what's next. What am I going to do next? And I wasn't necessarily worried about the future, but an opportunity came to do this show called Devious Maids that there was an unnecessary jumping through hoops to get, considering that I just came from a giant show. But I worked with these 4 amazing women, and they were all Latina. And it was like, okay, we're getting here. We're getting there somewhere, and to establish a connection. And I meet all these people because if we don't meet each other, we don't work together, there's a concern that there's less than there should be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's more work out there.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. And more things to do, more people to play with, and that sense of home that I felt at LAByrinth, I felt here, and it feels like so much like an outsider. It's a more diverse crowd instead of feeling like a guest in some rich people's homes. You feel like, girl, what's up? You're chilling. It takes a little bit more to get comfortable when you're in an environment where there's only one of you, as opposed to where there's like a handful of you. And that's kind of human nature. That felt exciting to me. And then Claws, because that was the beginning of not beginning, but I think the cementing of the character work that I'm capable of. And that was super rewarding for me. Those people from that show are among the closest friends that I still have. And there's nothing better than working with talented peers who give, period. And when you give, you get so much, you create so much, you get so much in return. And I think it created a confidence for me to be able to attract and demand the kind of work that I want to do.
Yeah.
And to grow and evolve and establish some kind of a position of fame, air quotes, or celebrity where you now have an impact or an opportunity or an ability to impact whatever work you want to create. That gives you the power in terms of what's next.
It sounds like something happened with Claws for you where you realized something about what you could do. Like, because I think this happens when you're given an opportunity to go a little bit out of your comfort zone or whatever people want to say. Like, maybe you're getting work in a certain kind of role and you courageously try to go for something different, and then realizing you can do that changes
that's
things,
exactly
right?
what it does.
And what was that about that project?
It was a really fun story. She was a butch queer woman, no makeup, hair back, barely said a word. And to like stand out like that was so cool. So cool. I knew exactly who she was. I was exactly someone I used to work with when I was in high school in a discount store. Her name was Yoli. She was tiny, lesbian. Always talked to. Just came. I think she was locked up. Talked about her wife, but she was the owner's right hand, and her owner was Sophie. She was really gruff. She was a bitch, but her and Sophie, her and Yoli were like this, but she was adorable, at your service, spoke when she needed, was a sweetheart, charming, sexy, flirty, a incredible employee, and I was like, that's Yoli.
Yeah. It's amazing when you have people in your life like this that you can pull, right? Like that are clear and different, right? Isn't it interesting that you can just, you don't forget those people.
You don't. And that's the fun of it, right?
Yeah.
To build something on someone, that's another thing that I do. Who do I know that's like this? Who do I know that does this? Okay, what would so and so do? Do they react like that? That kind of stuff is fun.
Are you a lover of people?
I am a lover of people.
Do you think that you can't be a good actor if you're not?
I think you can be a huge star if you're not. A good actor? I don't know.
Yeah. At what point in your career did you suddenly start to realize, okay, I'm actually getting a lot of work. I'm a product here. Like I'm a commodity. Like this is my livelihood is me. It's and I need to start to either change the way people are seeing me so I can get different work or not, so I can keep going along and getting work if I fitted a need of certain roles. Was there a certain time when you started to realize this, and what was that experience like of having to put on a industry hat and start to think of things like that?
I think last year. I mean that in an industry type of way. My husband and I have been making short films and projects that we love, that he's passionate about. He's a filmmaker as well since we met, and that's like 20 something years ago, right? A couple of our films got it. One film was in Cannes, the other one won the Latino Film Festival, like all over the country. And we're always doing things like that, but they're different from what the industry wants. That those are air quotes again for the podcast listeners. But I think like after COVID, I started getting all this character work. And then I stopped barely putting myself on tape altogether. And then all this stuff started coming to me. And then I have this independent feature, and then this other film, and now the show. And I was like, now we got to use it. Because again, there's a cultural humility that's also systemic in how you are taught to be grateful for what you have. And it almost seems like a little kept secret that, it takes using what you have to get a little more, especially coming from immigrants. But it also feels like a moment, like the time is right. Almost like from now in the world with what I'm doing, like, What am I going to do? What am I doing? What am I doing it for? You know, all those things are in your hands to craft.
Yeah.
And that's the part. It's like, but I'm an artist. It's not enough.
Yeah. It's hard to face that though, right?
It is. It is. Because it gives me anxiety. It feels like a huge responsibility. You know, it feels like, outside of that, the future is not in your hands.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it feels like it's out of your still wait for this, you know, to either end or get canceled, or this show to get dubbed before, there's something to do with it. Not to mention that you can affect change. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And again, it feels like lofty ideals, but it's also what artists are artists for.
And doesn't that add an extra pressure to you though in that way?
Of course.
When you realize that's important, yeah.
Of course, but
It's
the
a
other
good,
choices.
it's a good pressure. It's a good pressure.
It's a good pressure, but I mean, I think it's the pressure that a lot of the people that I'm connected to are under, that are willing to face it in order to tell the stories we want to tell.
Yeah.
Or be part of the things we deserve to be part of.
Yeah. I'm a big Hannah Marx fan. I will see anything that she does, whether she wrote it or directed it or is in it. And I'm very much looking forward to this film, Turtles All the Way Down. I asked her to tell me a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what she said. The second I was shown materials of Judy's work, she immediately became my first choice. I love that she has a comedy background and could bring levity to this emotional role. Nothing about her is cookie cutter. She personally connected to the story and deepened the scenes every time she showed up. Isabella and Judy both have such soulful eyes, and it instantly made me believe them as mother and daughter. I am on my millionth rewatch of Succession, and I'm reminded of how terrific she is in everything she does. I hope Judy will join me on whatever my next project is. Any director would be lucky to have her add some special sauce.
Oh my God, that's great. I love that movie. I love that book. I connected. That's speaking of connecting to something personally. It just felt like a gift for that to come to me. My kid has anxiety, you know, and all kinds of everything you go through with a teenager at that time. And Isabella's just the thing you want to protect and be safe with and make sure they're okay, but try to let go because they're a teenager. All those things that I got to really explore for like the first time ever, you know, and she was wonderful, and she was generous and caring and prodding, you know, and trusting. All those things you want from a director. You'd say, is that good? Is that good? Try this. We're good. No, that's awesome. You know, creating relationships and all of that stuff. And sometimes you don't have the luxury of any time because you're an independent film and you only have like 3 takes, but you look, you know. I had the same thing with Laura Moss for Rebirth. And I'm like, good? And I said, we'll talk. You want to try this? I'm like, really? Okay, let's try it. Boom. And you get it done because that's the world that you live in, you know, and almost it's even to the benefit as opposed to the detriment of the character.
And does it matter that she's an actor?
Probably. Or that she's been an actor. Eva Longoria is an astounding director. She was an actor, you know, and she's found her passion, her voice in that. So I think it does matter.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Judy Reyes, you got to come back on this show, okay?
I will be happy to come back. What a great conversation, Peter. Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.